We've hardly slept for 7 nights. Or we sleep, but anxiously. My dears, the time will come when we'll be able to sleep, but it'll be after the war, after the victory, in a peaceful country, as we need.
And just to clarify, that number of 2,000 killed from the Ukrainian officials is just civilians. I want to bring in CNN's Matthew Chance. He is in the Ukrainian capital, and we did just hear again from President Zelensky. And Matthew, is just one part of the remarkable reporting you've done. Yeah. You actually spoke to the president in his bunker.
I did, indeed. We were invited to a sort of undisclosed location in the center of Kiev, a specific secret location. We were then taken into a car and driven somewhere else. We didn't know where it was, but still in the center of the city. And then we were sort of herded down through the sandbags and the machine gun posts into the bowels of, a huge building in the center of Kiev. And, that's where eventually President Zelensky arrived. He mentioned there that he hadn't slept for 7 days, and like many other Ukrainians, feels the same, feeling a lot of stress. But when he appeared, he was, in good spirits, I'd say. But, he did look like he was tired. His eyes were bloodshot. He was pale. He was wearing the green sort of military fatigues that have become sort of characteristic of his public appearances over the course of the past week or so, or even longer, since this conflict with Russia has been raging. I spoke to him about a number of issues, but particularly about the refusal of the United States and other NATO countries to impose a no-fly zone. Take a listen to what he said about that, what I said about that, and what his answer was.
The United States has said that it will not enforce a no-fly zone over this country, and it won't put boots on the ground. But do you think it is now time for President Biden and other Western countries to reconsider that and to help you, not just with military aid, but with manpower?
I've already turned to some foreign leaders with this request. I believe that leaders must support democratic states of the world who are keen to defend such principles. The powerful issue of closing the airspace helps us tremendously. This does not mean dragging NATO into this war. We spoke many times with President Biden, and I'm thankful for him for these opportunities and support, but they also did not hear me. I've been telling them that Ukraine will fight hardest of all. You will see, but us alone against Russia, we would not be able to do it.
Well, John, at the moment here in Kiev, it is very, very quiet indeed. I mean, there were the big explosions that we had yesterday in which I think 5 people were killed, and we're reporting from that scene now, of course. But it's very, very quiet at the moment, even though we all know that on the outskirts of this city, there are thousands of Russian troops, a huge column of Russian armor sort of making its way to the outskirts in what many people anticipate will be a big assault on the Ukrainian capital. And so, there are still hopes that there could be a diplomatic, kind of outcome to this. There are talks underway. A second round going to be taking place later on today, according to Ukrainian and Russian officials. But there is still that sort of sword, that hammer hanging over this city when it comes to the potential use of, very, hard Russian force.
Matthew, that number we were just given from the State Emergency Services of 2,000 civilians killed now in Ukraine, I suppose it's not surprising given the scope and the intensity of the Russian attacks, but you can see the price that the Ukrainian people are paying.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true. When you have heavy weaponry sort of battling in civilian population centres, in close quarters, in streets. We saw the pictures of buildings being hit, whether intentionally or not, by the Russians. There's inevitably going to be that kind of damage to civilian life. And the real problem is, the even bigger problem is that as this battle intensifies, and if the Russians do step up their tactics and use much more force than they have done so far, those numbers could skyrocket. We are talking about very high concentrations of civilians that are in the line of fire in front of a massive Russian armored force. It's whether we think, is Russia capable of flattening civilian areas like this. Well, you know, I think many people feel, and I think the record shows that in the past they've done that.
I think the answer is yes. Matthew Chance, thank you for the work that you and your team are doing.
And joining us now is retired Major General Michael Repass. He commanded U.S. Special Operations Command Europe until 2013. He's now a board member at the Global Special Operations Forces Foundation. He's been directly involved with Ukraine security matters since 2016. Sir, thank you so much for being with us. There are, of course, Americans who have trained Ukrainians. You've been a big part of that. And I think people watching have been surprised by the effectiveness of the Ukrainian military. I wonder if you are.
No, I'm not surprised at all. This is the manifestation of not only the U.S.'s work, but NATO's work since 2014, 2015 timeframe, when we provided extensive advisory support and training support to the Ukrainian armed forces. But I would also say that there's some internal dynamics in Ukraine that have really contributed to the defenses that we see so far. First off, they're superbly led by combat experienced officers. The second thing is they prepared for this day. They prepared for this scenario that they find themselves in. They've passed laws. They've done a lot of work internally to reorganize and to reform. Their education and training programs have been reformed with the help of advisors from the U.S. and NATO. And they were on the brink of really reforming all their entire doctrine. The training assistance provided by the Western powers and the Western nations has been excellent, and they're very well trained at the tactical level. But I think what surprised people the most is the resilience of the people of Ukraine. That too is not by mistake. Beginning last year with the NATO's Comprehensive Defense Handbook that was published, Ukraine worked on their resilience internal to their society. They've actually prepared their population for this day when it might come. They passed a law back in July on resilience and resistance and national defense, and it specifically authorized the stand-up of the territorial army. Along with that, it talked about structure for the resistance.
And we've seen that. We've seen these territorial forces taking shape before our eyes. I wonder, what can they do, and can they do anything about, one, this Russian convoy, and two, this increasing appetite on the part of Vladimir Putin to be indiscriminate when it comes to civilians and using heavy weapons on them?
Yeah, so great questions. First of all, on the Territorial Army, it was a cadre organization that was authorized by the government to roll into militias to provide some structure and legal basis for civilians taking up arms against either a foreign nation or even some of their own citizens that are collaborators, so to speak. So the legal basis has been provided there. The training has not been, I would say, that of infantry combat troops or even at the police level. These are strictly volunteers to go out there. In regards to that convoy, I have to leave it to the tactical expertise of the Ukrainians out there. They know what's going on. They know it's out there. I'm sure if they have the capability to do it, either with the conventional forces, their special forces, or even the territorials, that they will get after it. It's a matter of capability. It's not a matter of will, because they have the will and they will fight to the last bullet, the last rifle, the last man.
Do they have the territorial forces and Ukrainian military? Can they withstand a sustained attack on Kyiv?
Okay, so now we get into what's going on the ground in this destruction campaign. So what we see is that tactically the Russians are stalled. They realize that force on force that they're taking extreme casualties. As a result, they're backing off, and they're now employing their highly destructive capabilities, precision weapons, thermobaric weapons, indiscriminate bombing, cluster bombs, cluster munitions, those things. So now they're going to embark on a campaign of immense destruction of, first off, the infrastructure that supports government control of the people and getting the word out, command and control in all elements of society. They've attacked museums and burned them. They've blown up government buildings. They're going after the infrastructure so that the government can't talk to the people and keep a coherent defense going. So we have to enable them through direct assistance, direct foreign assistance of aid, military aid, to be able to go out and destroy the things that are destroying them. So we're at a very critical time now, and the window is closing to do anything that's easy or simple. It is absolutely closed. Everything from here on out is going to be hard.
It's even hard to hear you say that, but you know, that's certainly how it feels as we are watching all of this go on and develop in Ukraine. General Repass, thank you so much for giving us your analysis on this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.